IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library, on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for teams by visiting itpro.tv/Security Weekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium IT Pro TV memberships using the code SECWeekly30. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/PSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Couple of quick announcements. Maybe just one. Let's go with Social Engineering Rhode Island Conference. Tickets are on sale Saturday, June 6th. Is that right? It's June 16th at Salve Regina University. I heard John Strand called it Regina. Yeah. Salve Regina sounds really bad. And I was telling everyone before.
Salivating?
Salve Regina. Oh. Salve Regina University.
Yeah, not salivating.
But I think you know why John called it that, because of Regina, Saskatchewan. And everyone in the office is like, what is that? I'm like, no, it's not what, it's a place. They're like, where is that? I'm like, Canada, eh?
Yeah.
And I said, Larry's been to Regina a couple times, right?
Nothing could be finer than the
visiting Regina.
In the morning.
Salivating Regina, yeah.
In the morning.
I mean,
so
did I say that?
Did you go there more than once, Larry? Regina, just once?
Just once.
It was really cold.
Yeah, it was.
I'm gonna remember.
The Regina was really cold.
Really cold, and that's the. I mean, we're off track already.
It's rusty.
se-ri.org is where you go to Salve Regina University Saturday, June 16th.
And isn't this the one we have 2 free tickets to give away?
And we have. Oh, I am so glad you reminded me, Larry, because apparently our listeners need to be reminded.
Yes.
To send us stuff.
Yes, because we have a contest. If you want 2 free tickets, send us a meme of both Paul and Larry to psw@securityweekly.com, and we'll pick the best one.
I'm not included?
Well, if we can only, we had to put some kind of guidelines around it, John.
Well, it could be. I mean, it has to feature Paul and Larry, but
it can fefeature other people. This is true.
Right.
Good point. Good catch.
Yeah. Right.
Good save, Larry.
You got to leave a little bit of flexibility there, right? I mean, we can have
because of right.
You could have not Evan in there.
And Photoshop is totally acceptable. Seeing the pixels is also totally acceptable.
Microsoft Paint totally acceptable.
Yep.
If you want to get all the hosts together and make a meme, that's cool too. You know.
Deepfakes, you know.
Be creative is what Larry's saying. Be creative. There will be a points awarded for creativity.
Yes.
This is a very dangerous contest, but you do get 2 free tickets. And you can come visit beautiful Rhode Island. Right, not Kevin? Don't you love Rhode Island? Rhode Island's awesome. Tell everyone how awesome Rhode Island is, Kevin.
Rhode Island is awesome. I'm actually drinking. No, I thought this was against it. Never mind.
I'm actually drinking a beer, and they have that in Rhode Island, so it's cool.
He thought it was a Gansett, but no, it's a Miller.
Yeah. And are you did you really just admit in front of our audience that you're drinking
Miller?
On
camera.
That's a high life, so it's okay. It makes it cool. It's not just Miller. It's a champagne of beers. What else is somebody drinking?
That ranks up there right next to Headache Weiser.
Headache Weiser.
I mean, Budweiser.
Oh, wow. We'll get off to a great start, I would say.
Rhode Island, it's a little bit like Delaware. It's just another exit off of 95.
Hey, now.
Hey, now. We have 2 exits.
At least.
Jeez.
2 exits.
Well, they have 2 exits. Oh, my God.
One
is
and
Pawtucket,
2.
And the other one is Providence.
You got to take the Providence one to go to Newport. So
what's the town that's the last exit in Rhode Island? I can't remember it now. It's something. Anyway, it'll come to me. Someone's
Yours?
South. No, south. No, it's not Charleston. It's more south.
Warwick?
No, Warwick's in the middle. That's where we are.
Yeah,
no.
I know.
No, it's some weird name. Anyway.
Pawcatuck? No. Weekapog.
All right. We're going on with the show now.
Concert.
Weekapog.
Oh, boy. So we wanted to start with, story number 11. Was that where we wanted to start?
Yes.
This was perhaps one of the most, I was planning on perhaps covering this article, maybe not in as much depth as I would have had I not read this fantastic little nugget of information in this article that states, according to, and so the title of the article, I should read that first, is a congressional debate was hacked to show gay porn. Now, while that's not interesting in and of itself, according to KRCR, moderator Chris Viral could be heard saying, "Looks like we got hacked again. We'll try to fix this." And the feed was cut entirely.
The keyword there being
again. Like, this dude's like, oh. So basically they were broadcasting some congressional thing because all the constituents were spread about geographically. They broadcast it on the radio and on television. Someone hacked it and broadcast gay porn instead. And the operator could be heard saying, like, "Oh, we got hacked again." Like, it's like, how regular of an occurrence is it for this radio and or TV station to be hacked? Where they're like, "Oh, yeah, we got hacked again." That's just if that is not the security fail of the week, I don't know what is. That is just awesome.
Yeah, apparently max headroom the first time wasn't good enough.
Was not good enough.
So
yes.
Yeah.
No other jokes about that story. No one wants to go there.
There's so much.
No, I think
so much attack surface.
Yeah.
It's hard to focus.
I think we've got enough other fun, really
we should put that story behind us.
Yes, we should.
Yeah. we should put that story in our back door and move on.
That one was brilliant, Paul. That one was brilliant. Oh my god, that was fucking brilliant.
I laugh at my own jokes in case anyone hasn't noticed. I thought that was really funny.
You know what? I laugh because they're funny when I tell them.
That's right. Oh boy! All right, so let's GDPR go. Come on, everyone's got to be noticing something about GDPR. Like the 8 million emails we get with our privacy policy has been updated.
Or more importantly, we can't continue to send you emails unless you opt back in. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Did I mention?
Which is weird. Nope. But why would they send you? You're in the U.S., but you.
They have to do it to all their customers because they're not singling anybody out, type of thing.
Oh, because they don't know where they live, perhaps?
I don't know. They do. They do business or they interact with folks from the EU, so then they have to be compliant. So that means they have to be compliant across the board.
That means everybody.
I think it's largely misunderstood and overblown. Jack, can you weigh in on this, please? Usually you're a voice of sanity when things like this happen.
It's new. I will give you the same advice I give anyone anytime when new regulations and policies come out. Don't be the test case.
Right.
I think a lot of people are getting it wrong. A lot of people, this has been coming for a long time, and everybody getting email today, you have to wonder how it is that it's a surprise that something that's been coming for a very long time is a surprise.
When you need to be compliant tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to let Europeans figure out what this looks like when the first few people get challenged with it. There are some substantial penalties. They can really cause you some financial hardship. But this is not legal advice. But it seems to me that if you have reasonable policies and are making good faith effort and other legalese bullshit, you're probably less likely to be screwed than just saying to hell with it and ignoring it. But it'll be interesting. I have a custom-made GDPR T-shirt I'll be wearing in London in about 10 days, so look for that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Just one reason to find Jack at a security conference, but the way it was explained to me, by someone who I trust was that basically if you have a data handling policy and you have a policy that says, hey, if you want access to your data or information about how you're handling your data, that you can provide that to your subscribers and or customers. That's probably good enough, like Jack's saying, to like not be the first test case. And again, I'm not a lawyer either, so but that's the way I generally understand it.
You need to be transparent about it. You can't hide your policies. Your policies need to be clear and meet the guidelines, and they need to be readily accessible. And you need to be able to tell people what you know about them, or simply if they say they want to be forgotten, you've got to delete the information about them. I mean, that's a very high-level view of it. But basically, you've got to know what you have about people so that you can tell them what you've got about them and what you do with that data. And if they say they're tired of you knowing about them, you need to be able to dump that data. And it gets interesting in some edge cases. Krebs has written up the the potential issues with WHOIS, although most of us hide behind some sort of privacy screening with WHOIS, but there's still real value in even seeing patterns of fake registration with WHOIS. So that's a little thing, but there's a lot of those sort of unintended consequences of this, where privacy plays in, where it doesn't. But it's not as shocking for Europeans who have already had European data privacy regulations, which have been way stricter than what we have in the U.S. It's been hard, I think, for a lot of companies outside of the U.S. who have any footprint at all in Europe, whether that's customers that are there or employees that are there or, maybe customers that are there. And it's interesting that some organizations have just said, we're not going to deal with Europe anymore. So there are a couple of ways out of it, and one of them is to take your ball and go home.
Does anyone take a stab at this VPN filter thing? Because I had not covered it previously this week or read about it. It seemed to be kind of late breaking for the show today.
It's been out for a couple of days, but there's been some breaking stuff. I know, Paul, you noted that they sort of, the feds seized control of the command and control infrastructure that was housed in the U.S. The one of the ones that I thought was interesting with the VPN filter stuff, they're trying to link it to a bunch of groups called APT28 Fancy Bear. But the one that I think, which is allegedly Russian, the one that I thought was the most interesting was part of the stuff that it was looking for once infiltrated. Was Modbus-based traffic. And Modbus is one of those older protocols that was developed in the late 70s for doing control for critical infrastructure, ICS, industrial control systems, SCADA, those types of
And correct me if I'm wrong, it was run over serial connections before TCP/IP, correct?
Correct, right. Now they have Modbus TCP.
Yep.
So you can run a completely plain text insecure protocol over TCP because yay!
Yeah, it's amazing how they implemented that on TCP, right? Which was supposed to be originally designed to be implemented on a truly closer network than we have today with so-called air gaps, right? But like serial connections were much more, I think, restricting in nature in terms of having other people potentially gain access to your network.
Yep.
And that was just a technology thing too. Of course, today there's a million ways which we can bridge an air gap, and lots of things that have wireless and USB ports and such. And largely that stuff didn't exist in even the late 70s.
Yep. Yeah.
It might have prototypes might have existed for some of the technology we have today, but it wasn't as widespread.
Right. So for me, the Modbus thing was kind of interesting in that they're trying to, figure out what Modbus traffic is present on that network, or traversing the router that was compromised of some variety, so that they could potentially interact with that and start leveraging Modbus to interact with various pieces of control-based infrastructure, which could be horrendous and horribly wrong.
Which also sounds like whenever I think of malware like this targeting critical infrastructure, usually that's nation-state based, typically.
So
would be my guess, but of course we'll never really truly know for sure.
Right.
Although Cisco Talos team there's people you know and love that work in the Cisco Talos team today. So.
Yep. And the one that I think
They're awesome.
You bring nation state up for that. Cisco declined to say who it was. They sort of alluded to who they thought it might have been, but the Ukraine was like, nope, it's Russia.
It's almost just like for the lulz why we follow who pinpointed who for what hacking campaign, because it's ridiculous. And again, the Cisco Talos team is very experienced security researchers. Like I said, you'll recognize names that work there, and they likely had that common sense kind of voice when they released this and said, you better not just go out and start calling out attribution, because that's not the case. That's just not cool.
Yep. Attribution is hard, man. Speaking of attribution being hard, did we ever figure out who NetDev was? Speaking of Talos.
I don't know if we ever... There was no conclusive evidence.
No.
I think there are some personas in security that we very well may never know the truth as to who they... Because anyone can be a dog on the internet, right?
Exactly.
So you just never know who could be who.
Hello, this is Dog.
There's a lot of, in that vein, I think there's a lot of Twitter accounts, parody accounts that it's funny, you hear rumors who they are and things like that, but you never really truly know.
Right.
So, and I think fortunately a lot of the Twitter accounts that are out there today are more funny than trolly, which is good. Swift on security, for example.
Yeah, and Swift on security may be funny more than trolly, but funny in a really articulate makes you think like, well, that was meant to be funny, but
there's some like knowledge underlying messages that speak to very someone. You can tell it's someone that has been doing security for a long time and is very intelligent. So
and also has a couple of good projects also. So it's not only trolling her or his GitHub account. It's awesome in terms of the SysMod rules that they have.
Nice.
So where do we want to go next, Larry? PornHub launches a VPN hub, a free and unlimited VPN service. Kind of an interesting move from one of the internet's largest porn sites.
Or not. I mean, interesting in that they want folks to be able to gain access to
their site.
Well, and to all sorts of other things that you may be you may want to. So it kind of makes sense that they want folks from nations that may be oppressed to be able to gain access to content that they might not otherwise. And one of those pieces of content may just happen to involve porn.
Right. I mean, that's the majority. Yeah. From what people tell me, that's the majority of the content that's on PornHub.
Well, they started moving.
I think you might be right there, Paul.
Jack, didn't they start moving some gun videos over to PornHub once?
He's going porn. What?
Jack, did you find your mute button?
Jack, mute.
That one?
Jack.
That one there?
Yes.
Is that the one? Oh my God. Yes, weapons stuff has moved around. Different kinds of guns on PornHub than there used to be. That's all.
Well, and what's interesting, as the larger sites will restrict content, it doesn't mean that content goes away. It just, like Jack said, it shifts. It finds somewhere else to live.
Yeah, just like many years ago when I was working on the XF metadata stuff. People started posting erotic pictures to TwitPic and some of the Twitter picture sharing services before that Twitter was a thing that did that. There were third-party services to host pictures for that. And then TwitPic said, nope, no adult content. So, 4 sites stood up that's all they did was allowed you to host adult content for Twitter.
Right. Now, the interesting thing about PornHub hosting other kinds of content or even hosting a VPN service is it's likely often included. I would think it would obviously be included in blacklists or other kind of filtering services that are filtering for adult material that likely are in use on your network. So while we do like to maintain that, if large video provider like YouTube is restricting your content, you can move somewhere else. There's a certain penalty for that, in that it's much more difficult to gain access to that now when it lives on a site like PornHub, or you want to use a VPN service and maybe it ties back to IP addresses that are owned by PornHub. Although I can see them potentially getting around that issue.
Yep. So the one thing that's interesting about the PornHub VPN stuff is that they are definitely observing traffic coming out of their endpoints to be able to do analytics on.
Sure.
To sort of see what type of things, because if you're using Pornhub's VPN to surf for porn, they want to know what kind of porn you want to watch so that they can build their market based on what people are looking for. So now the question that I've got is, how are they gathering that data?
I was stuck there for a minute, Larry, on observing traffic out of their endpoints.
Yes. So Joff, how do you think they're doing that? How are they doing that? Are they doing deep packet inspection?
I think they might be deeply intruding into your packet.
Deep packet inspection. Thanks, Adam.
Oh, God. Moving on.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy. Next story. What else are we talking about? Why the older you get, the more you hate everyone.
That was supposed to be last.
And why that's... Okay, that was second to last.
No, that's for Jack. That's the last story. Jack being the token old guy. Me being the second token old guy, I suppose.
Now the question is, which one of you two token old guys is token? Because never mind.
Oh no, that's way too deep.
Never mind. Font steganography, Paul.
Yeah, I don't know. I threw that one in there. You picked on like one of the few stories I didn't actually read. I just thought it sounded cool.
Moving along. Let's see.
All it says was there was interesting research in steganography at the font level. So,
I've got one I want to talk about, but
Oh yes, Joff, do.
Okay, so NetHammer. Did anybody catch the recent research into NetHammer, which is an extension of Rowhammer? Now, if you recall, Rowhammer required local access to the machine in question in order to induce bit flips inside of DRAM to largely cause denial of service conditions. But the big challenge was it was physical / remote access local access to actually be able to attack DRAM or attack memory. NetHammer as an extension that is possible now to induce bit flipping behavior in memory with network attacks. And I actually went out and read the paper, believe it or not, about how this comes about. And the short version of it is Intel introduced a version of a technology called CAT, which is designed to equally distribute memory caching resources in a virtualized environment. And if you want to try to flip bits with network drivers, basically, you have to hammer the network stack with lots and lots and lots and lots of traffic. The challenge with the Intel CAT technology is it forces cache flushing in memory in order to equally provision the memory caching technology to different virtual machines. And so it becomes possible to actually flip bits in memory if you have a spike of traffic large enough that induces the network driver into poor behavior, largely the CL flush instruction in the instruction set, thus inducing essentially a Rowhammer effect. Now, the spike of traffic has to be in the order of 500 megabit, which is no mean feat, right? The paper I read was they were local resident hosts that were firing 500 megabit of traffic at servers and hosts to actually induce this behavior.
I've got a script
the
for
impact
that.
The impact is largely a denial of service impact that upon inducing bit flips in the kernel level driver, which makes sense if you think about it. But I think it's an interesting extension of the Rowhammer idea. And I won't go any deeper into it. Suffice it to say that DRAM is made up of capacitors, which have very low tolerances in terms of the physical intervals, and if you supercharge, not supercharge, but if you charge the capacitors at a high enough rate into memory, you will induce neighboring bit flips in the way that the architecture is laid out in the chip itself. That's largely the intent of rowhammer. The best mitigation for both rowhammer and nethammer is to use ECC memory in servers.
Awesome. Any other stories that we wanted to cover? That was just so deep, Joff. I couldn't do it any justice.
There you go.
I know Jason's got some stories in there, but I definitely had one that I wanted to make sure we wanted to touch upon.
Well, one of the ones that after talking to Steve earlier, kind of as we were talking about encryption and whatnot, was the FBI exaggerated, or at least misstated or miscounted, their inability to access encrypted devices. So they've been saying for quite a while that the FBI has gone dark. They were locked out of 7,800 devices that they couldn't gain access to in the investigation of crimes. And they just actually released that, oops, we miscounted. It was only 1,000 to 2,000. And they said actually, and then somebody later they come back and say about 1,200. So I thought, Paul and I have talked about this on Hack Naked News a fair bit. We've talked about the problems around the idea of the exceptional access requirements that law enforcement's asking, the key custodian frameworks that are being promoted. But to beat this drum, figures in the Department of Justice and the FBI are quoting some pretty big numbers to make the case why they need to have this access and why encryption needs to be modified from where we know now into something that they have access to in exceptional, whatever that is, situations. And then we find out that those numbers aren't accurate. But we'll probably hear that number being trotted out for things in the future. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to be aware of here as we're listening to public figures talk about this problem, that it's not as bad as, or it's a little overblown, the numbers being trotted out.
It tends to happen with data breaches.
Yep.
Numbers get all over the place sometimes.
Hate it when that happens.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
That's it.
Yeah, basically.
So I'd like to add a little
fear,
uncertainty, and doubt. My story number one, the quote DHCP vulnerability, which really wasn't a DHCP vulnerability. It's DHCP functions exactly as it's supposed to. However, Red Hat with Network Manager included a script that when it receives specific DHCP options from a DHCP server, it does some additional processing and runs some scripts. And if you are to include malicious actions in that DHCP option,
it executes
the scripts will execute them,
resulting in an exploit that was a one-liner posted to Twitter.
Yeah.
Which I love it when that happens. That's just great.
Yep. So that was
not great if you're a Red Hat user.
Right.
Saying.
Which now think about this. We were having some discussion about this the other day at InGuardians, was that, well, great, Red Hat, but what about CentOS?
Yes, derivatives were also affected in this vulnerability.
So like CentOS being a derivative and some of those other ones, which are trying to be...
Fedora, I think, was also listed in the advisory.
Yep. Now, what about all of these other systems that use Network Manager? Have they adopted some of Red Hat scripts, like
potentially
Debian and Ubuntu?
I'm not sure about Debian. They weren't named in the... But it kind of speaks to the issue I was talking about earlier with Steve, was you incorporate other elements.
Yep.
And this is an interesting take on that, because it's not that I've abandoned my Linux distribution or Red Hat has abandoned the network manager. It's that I've included the network manager and just like not realized that there's a vulnerability in it and never fixed it. Or maybe I did really abandon my Linux distribution and people are still using it and never going to get an update because it's no longer updated. Or I'm just running it. People are downloading my version of Linux or DHCP or my embedded operating system more likely. I've included this component and I've just never updated it. Well, and it kind of goes back to Steve's point about how this problem exists on IoT devices. Because I included that code once, now it's vulnerable. And how do I update it? Is there even a mechanism for me to do that?
Yeah, and yet another reason why network manager should die in a fire.
Pretty much.
Not only that, but it's something that when you look at it, you're not going to see Qualys, Nessus, or any other vulnerability scanner out there actually catch some of this stuff when it comes to open source projects, not official packages. But if all of a sudden I decide, hey, I'm going to use this library, I'm going to put it in my product, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm using this library in my product, well, it depends how you use the library. There's no other way of doing a test on that black box application over the network. So yeah, open source has its pros and cons, and sometimes I see people actually rely blindly on tools like, hey, I run this vulnerability scanner, I run OpenBAS, and it's telling me I'm okay, 0 vulnerabilities, so I should be good. No. You shouldn't trust blindly what a tool is actually telling you sometimes.
Well, yeah, and that's really interesting, Carlos, from the perspective that the way that most companies or projects check for vulnerabilities might be correlating that back to some kind of CVE or some kind of, in this case, like Red Hat release. This package, if you're running Red Hat, is vulnerable. Like Carlos says, you take that and you put it on something else. The checker has no reference. In fact, you could have taken that software, increased the version number for your own package, never fixed the vulnerability, which, as Carlos was saying, like not never going to find, but your chances of finding that, unless you're looking for it, are pretty slim, or unless you're trying to exploit it actively. Then you know. Which is interesting. Do we advocate more pen testing, different ways of testing your network? Certainly, the whole field of attack simulation is very interesting, but that's more of a post-exploitation activity rather than an exploitation activity.
Well, it depends. If you look at some of the Java libraries out there that people are using, let's say, for example, struts, detecting somebody that was actually using struts, there were only a handful of test cases where were able to detect it remotely. Other than that, you had to trust your vendors. So it is. I think it is a multi-step, multi-pronged kind of thing. If it is a project that you have access to the source code, do you have the people and skill set to inventory all of those packages and then monitor all of those packages yourself? Or are you going to put it in the hands of the vendor, and what guarantee the vendor is going to give you that he's actually monitoring that and is going to inform you as those packages become vulnerable or not? Some vendors have the capability, others do not. Sometimes it is financial, other times it is a business decision, other times it's just manpower. Same thing happens in an industry. Somebody decides, hey, like a buddy of mine, they paid a couple of programmers to write a bunch of stuff in Java code, and he's stuck with Java 1.6 because nobody that he tries to hire wants to take the project of migrating such a huge code base into the latest version of Java for the amount of money that he can pay. He did monitor the packages. He knows it's burnable. But now he's stuck in a financial rut in terms of what he can actually pay to fix his application. And his security team is only a 2-man team trying to figure out how to keep all of their applications across several types of CentOS installations, several types of Oracle applications, MySQL, Postgres, and monitor all of those packages. Some of this stuff, sadly, was downloaded. That was, hey, let me run configure, make install. Now there's no no way to list all of those packages for you to see, hey, am I updated? Yes, no. And you're just trusting blindly that you are, because RPM or DPKG tell you that you're fully patched.
Right. No, it's a good point. That's scary. Any other more security-related stories?
I've got one.
Yes,
Ooh.
let's do it, Kevin.
So
Oh,
I have
God. Kevin,
my article
go
number
on.
1 titled "For the Love of God, Stop Renting Routers from Comcast." It turns out
Oh, God, this
security
one.
researchers found that the activation link where you'd go to, say, register your Comcast combo router and wireless access point, if you entered anyone's Comcast ID and house or apartment number, it would return not only the, say, information and address of the individual, but also the wireless network name and the password that was configured for that wireless
Oh
network.
god.
Awesome.
Wait. So
No, but this
What
can't
did- what
exist. GDPR is going to take care of this problem.
Yeah.
right, wait. So what exactly did you have to enter? Just like the address or the user ID or what?
I'll quote, "Only a customer account ID and that customer's house or apartment number is needed."
Oh, so it was a guess of an ID and a house number.
The
So it wasn't-
information could be grabbed from a discarded bill or obtained from an email.
Or brute forced.
Mhm.
But they found that even after the combo router has been activated, you can still do this. So this is for live activations. And if you change the password and did it again, it would re-update with the password that's displayed on the website.
Free internet for everyone.
But it's okay because a Comcast spokesman did say there's nothing more important than our customer security. So
Nothing
Thank
more.
God, Kevin. I mean, you had me worried there that Comcast didn't care about its paying subscribers. They do, right? Do they?
I hope.
Oh.
They care about the money that they get.
Oh
out of
my!
those subscribers.
Comcast has.
They protect that.
I'm a very
Comcast on Twitter had. For those that remember the early days of Twitter, remember Comcast Bonnie? She's been long gone from working at Comcast, but
They've
wanna say a
shifted
couple of
those
months ago.
responsibility to Comcast Cares.
right. It's now Comcast Cares. But Bonnie had trouble with her own home Comcast connection a few months ago, and somebody behind Comcast Cares got condescending with Bonnie about her attitude, and it was kind of funny to watch the person that created the jobs for all of that team be a dumbass to Bonnie.
It's awesome.
Oh, God.
It's awesome.
Good Lord.
It's,
Uh,
you know, do you
so-
know
so
who
far,
I am?
Comcast
Is
is
usually
still
a
my
pretty
favorite
obnoxious
demo
thing to
for
do. I
DNS
was kind of
Recon.
like surprised she finally had to say that to them. It's like, do you know who I am?
What is that, Carlos?
After so many years, Comcast still is my favorite demo when I'm demoing DNS Recon for NSEC
Oh, no.
zone walking. Even how long has DNS Recon been? 6 years already? 7
Yeah,
years?
It's been a while.
And I can still zone walk their entire zone, and I can still see all of their private 10.10 IP addresses for their ILOs and other stuff. And I've talked with Comcast people, and they tell me, no, that information, it's behind the firewall. It's secure. Don't worry. And you're like, okay.
Yikes.
It's It's anywhere I've looked at a Comcast connection, it's that way. IPv4 and IPv6.
Oh, boy.
Ideal.
I'm a very happy ex-Comcast customer.
Comcast is not a provider here in Rhode Island that I'm aware of.
And
Pretty
where I
much
lived
our-
for a while, you had your choice: Comcast or the phone company.
We're pretty much Verizon or Cox.
Yep.
That's pretty much it, right, in Rhode Island?
Yep. Verizon or Cox.
That's it. At least we have two choices. At least we're not stuck with just one.
Mm-hmm.
So, why the older you get, the more you hate everyone? Jack, is that really true?
I hate to disappoint you. At some point in time, a lot of people flip, but it's very common. Yeah, and there's like I've had enough of your shit. I'm not putting up with any more of your bullshit. I've had enough of all sorts of things, but for some of us at least, you reach a point in life too where you realize, you start to lose people that matter to you, and you actually reverse this trend and start putting up with more shit just to be around people that you love. So not to get all idealistic and ruin this story, but this is obviously somebody probably in their late 30s or in their 40s, hasn't reached that point of life where you're like, well, I can either be bitter until I die, or I can revert to being young and idealistic and foolish. And So yeah, no, they raised some good points, but the amount of bullshit I'll put up with is definitely less than I used to. But I seek out people like my Security Weekly family here, not to get all sentimental, but you find people.
Oh man,
you find people that you click with.
I think you just refine like keeping good company, right? And that becomes more of a skill you gain over time.
You waste less time on the people that don't matter and the things that don't matter. And you concentrate more on the stuff that matters. And, if you've been through the stuff that I've been through, turns out people matter. So,
well, and
not to get all
I'd
idealistic,
that, right?
let's all sing Kumbaya, but there you go.
But still, Jack, sometimes you have to tell people to get off your lawn.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, absolutely. That's true. I was just cleaning the guns.
Hold
on. Joff, then Carlos.
Oh, okay. Now, being the second token old guy, I suppose, I think it's you end up having less time for other people's bullshit because it's just not worth wasting your time. I mean, that's the god honest truth, right? It's like, I got things to do. I got people to hang out with, like you guys. Exactly what Jack was just saying.
Carlos?
No, just say when he's mentioned the gun, it says it just went off.
Mm-hmm.
So,
were you getting robbed in Puerto Rico, Carlos, and defending your property?
Yeah.
Well,
this week is no different from last week.
The disposing bot is the hard part.
That's right. You got to get to the point where you can get an excavator. Makes it much easier.
Or enough lye and acid. You're also.
I want to go back to what Jack was saying too, because I also think that it's one of those coachable moments that I wish I had listened to people earlier in my career that said, like, really pick and choose what you're going to do rather than take everything on. Mm-hmm. And we've been through, like, I think me personally, like multiple iterations of that until I think you finally could reach a point where you're more selective than you were before. And I try and tell people that earlier in their careers, and most people don't listen, which is kind of frustrating. Like, well, yeah, they'll figure it out eventually. But I think much like, friends also, choosing what you want to work on in your career, especially in security, where there's a lot of opportunities to work on a lot of things.
Sure.
Being selective is certainly important, and having some good goals. So
that's a really good statement, Paul. I still struggle with that today, and I probably shouldn't. But you got to focus your efforts. That's absolutely true.
So, Joff, a very wise person once taught me a great exercise that I'll share with our listeners that I shared with the team here, which I have to get back to. And that was Josh Wright. Mm-hmm. A long time ago said, take
off your pants.
Take off your pants, then take 5 note cards and line them all up and write 5-year goals on each of those note cards.
I remember this.
And what I learned was that if you do that, and it really you got to work on what a goal is, because that can be hard too, right? And Josh was really instrumental in teaching me like what a true actual goal is in related to your career. And then when you take stuff on, or maybe you make new relationships, have them align with your goals.
Yep. And I know you still have one of those cards. And I know what's on that card. And I got to say, Paul, I think you're doing a pretty damn good job of it.
Hey, thanks. I try.
Okay, everybody, group hug.
I try to be the drunken podcast host. I mean, that was always a goal for me. And so,
that wasn't on the card, though. That wasn't on the card, though.
Alrighty. So an off-topic story of the week, which I just couldn't not. How do you not pay attention to this headline and just kind of scratch your head and go, like, what is I hate it when this happens. And the headline was,
it happens 3 times a week, for crying out loud, for you, Paul.
Florida man tasered after walking naked through neighborhood carrying cooking oil.
How could that possibly go wrong?
I mean, how
Florida.
So I hear Kevin Johnson is recovering nicely from his. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Too easy.
Yeah. Love you, Kevin. I'm just joking. It was not Kevin Johnson.
This week.
The person's name was in the article, I believe.
It wasn't Kevin Johnson this week.
This time.
Don't worry. Florida has lots of time.
It was Joseph John Musso, age 63. Just to put a mental picture in your head of a 63-year-old naked man walking through your neighborhood carrying cooking oil.
Was he chugging creamed corn at the time?
He was charged with loitering and prowling, lewd and lascivious, thank you, behavior, resisting an officer without violence, and exposure of sexual organs.
According to an arrest report, a deputy encountered Musso, who was naked standing in heavy rain near a red pickup. Musso was also holding a plastic bottle with cooking oil, according to the report.
Just so we really paint the visual picture.
He attempted to run away, but slipped on the cooking oil.
Didn't make it very far.
I really hate my imagination right now.
Carlos, I really love your imagination right now.
He was wrestled to the ground after several officers couldn't get a hold of him.
I just want to say, like, that's America,
just like an oil pick.
They just keep slipping, damn it!
Spilled a 55-gallon drum of lube in my garage, and now an infinite number of cars can fit in it.
That's right.
You just gotta slide them in slowly first.
Next story, please. Next story.
There are no next stories.
That was seriously the last story
Oh God.
that I wanted to cover in cooking oil.
May I suggest a wrap?
Larry,
let's
wrap this up. Make some stir fry.
Some cooking oil.
Wrap.
Wait, we could make some omelets. Do you remember that one?
No.
Yes, you
Take
do.
us out though, because we're ending the show.
Oh, right. Over and come omelets.